Disclaimer.
Dark web users of Reddit, was there ever a point in your use that you felt you were genuinely in danger? What happened? Not the modern dark web, but back in the days of Usenet I posted some harsh criticism in alt.religion.scientology. Yes, that was a typo for Scientology, but I'm leaving it for context of a bunch of posts. The online threats were funny, but when I started getting death threats by mail I backed the fuck off. Edit, I didn't think this would blow up like it did, but to answer a few common questions. I posted a bunch or criticism of the cause in the Usenet group alt.religion.scientology. This was in the late 90s and well before most modern forums and content aggregators like Reddit existed. Fark was the big one and Dig was just starting to get popular. I was high school, for non-Americans, grades 9 to 12. I was in high school and was using my home computer as an FTP server for a Whereas group on IRC because I convinced my dad to sign up for a 90-day free trial of this new thing called broadband. I had 3 megabits per second down and 1.5 megabits per second up. Of course we never cancelled it. They figured out who I was by using a cute FTP vulnerability to get root directory access to my PC. The death threats were bad enough, but what really sticks with me is the malice of deleting my family photos, including the last picture is us with my dad whole he was alive. I was the typical invincible feeling young adult and I was more concerned about worrying my mom than I was about my own safety. This was long before doxing was a thing, and online threats going from email to handwritten letters was terrifying, but as a high school kid I never would have admitted it. Nobody asked, but if I was confronted in person I would have fought back. 18 years later, if they really held a grudge and threatened me again with the same malice expressed in those letters I got, I would open the door with a gun in hand, and if they tried to get in, I would assume that they were intending to kill me and shoot first. Yes, Scientology is a dangerous type of cult, and unless you are prepared to go full Inquisition and burn them all at the stake, it is better to stay far away. They have killed, and will kill, to protect the organization. I criticized Scientology and they sent me death threats, so I stopped doing it. That's the whole story. Wait, I can actually get Scientology to come after me? Because seriously, fuck those cunts. After what they did to my friend, the easiest thing they deserve is prison. A bunch of kidnappers, thieves, and rapists. I've written a couple of books about the dark web, which means I've spent a bit of pretty much every day of the past 8 years poking around inside. Over the years I spoke to, interviewed, and even visited many dark web identities, drug dealers and operators of darknet markets mostly. I attended the trial of one of the most evil people on the planet. Lux, the owner of Hurt to the Core, a child torture site, turned out to be a friendless, unhappy kid who built his evil empire from his childhood bedroom, with his parents blissfully unaware of what was happening under their noses. The only time I felt even slightly in danger despite all this nosing around in there was when I helped uncover a hitman scam. The owner of Besa Mafia, the most profitable murder-for-hire site in history, came after me when I started writing about him. He made loads of threats. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are and where you live. But that wasn't scary, as I had access to the backdoor of his site thanks to a friendly hacker and knew he didn't really want to hurt anybody. It took a bit of a darker turn when he told the people who had signed up to work as hitmen on his site and who he made video themselves burning cars with signs on them to advertise how legit his site was, then never sent them the promised money for doing so, that I was the owner of the site who had ripped them off. That could have become ugly, but luckily even the thugs weren't dumb enough to believe him. The only other time I'd been a bit nervous was when Homeland Security wanted to have a friendly meeting with me on one of my trips to the US to attend a trial. They were friendly, but scary too. I remember finding a website in high school where you could sell your baby. I thought it was a joke, but the more I looked into it, it seemed legit, so I called my teacher over and showed it to him. He was like, "Okay, thank you, I'll handle it." Never asked him what happened, but the site was down shortly thereafter. Maybe he reported it? I dunno. Don't frequent it a lot, but once I accidentally left my browser in full screen and a stranger in a chat room asked me if my curved monitor was nice, freaked me out a bit. I had to take an ethics course before my uni let me even take my cybersecurity courses. They really do clue you into how much destruction you can cause, but want to essentially vet you beforehand. Webcam turned itself on once. That was scary. I immediately unplugged it and my network cable ran 3 complete scans of my system for malware and viruses. Found nothing. Hasn't happened since. This happened to one of my friends. He said the camera turned on and he was redirected to another website where he saw his own face and some kind of official seal with an eagle on the side. He didn't read what any of that said because he shut down his PC as fast as he could. He was really quiet and anxious for the next days. I saw him at school. The first day he looked very scared and even looked pale. This was what prompted me to ask what happened. Sounds like it could have been one of those fake FBI scams. I had a similar one when I was a teenager on my first laptop. It loaded up the webcam and had a bunch of shit talking about how the US government was going to arrest me for piracy unless I sent them $200 on prepaid cards. It had the seal with the eagle and everything. Yeah, this is a super common one still. Sometimes they threaten to release browser history, photos of people in compromised positions, that they viewed CP sites, or threaten arrest. Hugely successful and ongoing scam. Couple of friends got hit with the compromised photo scam a few weeks ago. They were told there was video of them masturbating to whatever porn they were watching, and if they didn't pay, the video would be leaked to everyone in their contacts. They didn't give any shits. Posted on FB like, hey everyone, someone just tried to blackmail me saying they have nude footage from hacking my webcam. So if it's true and gets posted, you're welcome, I guess. Not to scare you out, but information stealing malware has the capability to morph itself and will only run from the RAM every time you restart your computer. It's a new file process essentially. Unless the antivirus program knows the current running virus in your RAM, it probably won't detect it. I do IT stuff. Look up TrickBot. I was a casual orderer of the dark web for a while and got pretty big into it and started buying slightly bulky packages of drugs. If you knew the markets for a while, then you would know one called Alphabi was the best of the best. The Amazon of drugs and fraud would be its best description. However, it went down mysteriously one day and everyone assumed the owners just scammed everyone for their Bitcoin. Partially true, but in the background it was actually seized the DEA. Everyone flocked to a new site called Hansa, which had some sketchy design features, but it was the next best alternative. Turns out the Dutch police took over the site and with cooperation of multiple governments ran a drug distribution onion site with over $1 million of transactions for around a month. They were gathering information from unsuspecting users, including me, who bought with faulty security practices. Now this is where I started freaking out. Imagine trafficking drugs through the mail, and the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Sessions, makes a speech live on television that he was going to crack down and explicitly explains how fucked everyone on Hansa was because they have been gathering data for over a month. And in a big dick energy move closes the site and puts up a banner in its place saying everyone who has purchased will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law during his live speech. I was shitting myself for a month as many arrests did occur, but luckily I guess I wasn't important enough and nothing happened to me. Here in the Netherlands, they also used that information to pay a home visit to at least all underage drugs purchasers. I can't remember if they also visited others, but I remember distinctly they at least went to people who were underage and give them a visit to remove the illusion that purchasing that stuff on the dark web is safe and make sure they are properly informed about drugs. That's such a Dutch thing to do. I hope the police turned up on bicycles. Wasn't this an episode of the Darknet Diaries podcast? I never heard of them, but possibly, in my opinion, once Alphabi got seized, it was the end of a golden era of markets and one of the defining events that shaped the rise of current markets. Also, there were quite a few suicide posts on now banned Darknet subreddits because people were so stressed out and waiting for a battering ram to the door. Edit, yep, they did Darknet Diaries episode 24, and apparently the operation was named Operation Bayonet. You don't just stumble onto the scary parts of the dark web, you had to have been looking for something sinister if you happened to come across one of the sites. Even then, getting access to said sites isn't as easy as most of them are invite-based. Most of it is just the normal internet with questionable forums, think 4chan but slightly worse, and petty drugs. It's very hard to reach the criminal parts of the dark web unless you have very specific URLs, and even then the host has the option to deny you access. However, once you're in, it can become a slippery slope. There's hitmen, human trafficking and snuff films and such, but a vast majority of these sites are scams asking you to send them Bitcoin. A small portion of users on the dark web would be there for this sort of stuff. However, buying drugs online is quite popular and widespread. Single vendors can have $500,000 plus in lifetime sales. You use PGP to encrypt your address so only the seller of the drugs has access to your private info. If your package is seized, they have no proof you ordered it unless they seize your computer and you have that information stored on it. You can use Tails, USB to avoid this. Even if your packages get seized, you'll often get a love letter saying what they seized and there is no follow-up after that. Be safe, boys and girls. Don't give out your information or communicate with others. And if you plan on purchasing anything, use a secure Linux OS like Tails, use private keys, connect to a public Wi-Fi spot, not your house, encrypt all messages, use multi-signature markets so your chances of losing your Bitcoin lessens, escrow preferably, never send your Bitcoins from a wallet attached to you directly to the seller, tumble your coins first. And when the package arrives, don't open it for a few days. A friend of mine gave me all this info and told me I should help you guys out. Why wouldn't you want to open the package immediately? If Leos come looking for it, you have plausible deniability. Randomly got this, didn't order it myself. True 420 IQ play. You can also watch other videos by going to the channel. I will be pleased if you like them.